Thank you so much for joining me on Carbon Convos. We met at NBJ, and obviously, when someone sees you, they can tell that you're fit. So, I would love to know, what is your wellness routine?
It varies. I just, try and take care of myself as best I can. Eat, first of all.
Mhm.
I believe the first thing that you have to start off with is what you put in your body is what's going to come out. You know what I mean? So I try not to eat fried foods and crazy stuff. I try and stay away from too many sweets. I don't do any dairy, but that's for other reasons. When you get a little bit older, you don't want to mess with the dairy products. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's the first thing I do. And then I do this cycling class now. I'm in a spin. I do that twice a week. I do a boxing class once or twice a week, and then I lift as often as I can. And then when I'm just around the house, I'll do some sit-ups, some push-ups. I'll be watching television, watching the game, and during a commercial break, I just get down on the floor and do like 20, 25 push-ups. Just kind of keep my body moving, just to
Yeah.
stay active. So the thing is, like, I'm 54 years old now, and what I'm trying to do is be the Black Benjamin Button. I'm trying to make time go backwards. So it's good that people can notice that the work is I'm putting in, and like I said, whatever you put in is what you're gonna get out. So I'm trying to put in as much as possible for myself.
So, you've always been pretty active, if I'm correct. Didn't you play sports in high school?
I played sports in high school, played sports when I was in the military, and then I got a little lazy. I sat down, I started working a lot, and I think when I was in Dallas, I kind of went through a little bit of a mini depression, and when I was in Connecticut, it wasn't the greatest outdoor place. You know what I'm saying? So I was just working all the time and wasn't as active, and I ballooned up. I mean, I was like when I was in Connecticut, when I was in my 30s. What I'm saying, I tell people all the time, I feel like I'm better now than I was when I was in my 30s. When I was in my 30s, I was like 255 pounds. And now I'm down to like 220, 215, somewhere around there. But I was a big guy. I had back problems, once again, depression. Mentally, I wasn't in the right spot as well. So there was a lot going on. So right now, because I take care of my mental first, all the other stuff kind of comes along. So, for the last 5 or 6 years, I've really been on this health kick. And obviously during COVID, you kind of lose sight of that a little bit because you can't go to the gym. But now I'm addicted to it. I love going out there and just, taking care of myself and seeing the results and actually hearing people say that, the results are coming through.
Okay, so several questions about that period in your life.
Mm.
Did you start gaining weight because you were so busy and didn't really have the time to work out the way you wanted to, or what were the factors that contributed to the weight gain?
Mainly my mental. I just wasn't happy. I was just in a state of depression. I was and I'm very open to talk about those types of things because mental health is so key to me. I was just going through a lot of things, from job situation, from being some home situations that was happening, going on or whatever, and then I wasn't motivated. So that led to a lot of stuff. And then once you stop doing things that you're used to, you kind of get into a mode. You just sit around and you just don't have the motivation to get back out there and do it again. And it wasn't until I started having back issues where it was hard for me to get out of bed that I like realized that, I got to do something about this. I got to just snap out of it. So, through prayer, hard work, and this is before I started going to therapy, just like kind of motivating myself. I started working out again and started doing this thing called P90X back in the day. And that's when I lost about 25 pounds. And, once you start hearing people pour into you and telling you, hey, you know what? You're looking good now. You're doing that. That's like it kind of feeds into your ego and feeds into your brain a little bit more. And it kind of motivates you to kind of want to maintain at least what you have and kind of even go even further. So, like I said, I'm at this age now where I'm trying to turn back the clock because, we are in a business where, aesthetically, you got to look a certain way, you got to feel a certain way, you got to be motivated, you got to be, energized and working out and eating the right things keep me energized and keep me going. So this is, part of my whole plan as far as like my marketing, even marketing myself now.
Now, a lot of people struggle with depression. I struggle with depression, anxiety, and it is really, really hard to motivate yourself to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of bed, take a shower, make a meal, anything. Sometimes you find yourself only really being able to do what you have to do. So,
Mm.
how did you make that transition out of depression into working out? And was it difficult?
It was very difficult. I mean, like I mean, obviously I'm very open about this. I was, suicidal back in the day. I was like, man, I ain't really believe that. I wanted to be here much longer. It was just so much that was happening in my life. I was just so full of misery and so much trauma and a lot of sadness and anger built up, and just not feeling like I was getting my fair take. So, but after a while, you just kind of like, God has certain things that's inside of you that's innate that'll pull you through. You have a certain uh, support group that might give you some words of motivation. I can't point my finger to one exact thing that made me just say, let me get up off my ass and just do this again. Let me just make this happen for me again. I think it was just more so like, hey, you know what? I'm tired of living this life. This ain't me, So I just had to snap out of it. Um, Maybe it was just, me saying if it's going to happen, I can't rely on anybody else. I got to do it for myself. And obviously, give credit to God for just giving me whatever jolt I needed. Because even when I was going through, I look back at that. It's like I needed that because I realized that part of, I always say, my burdens become your blessings if you learn the lessons. So I needed to learn a lesson in that season. And my lesson was like, hey man, you're gonna have some downtimes, but you can't stay down. You can have a bad day, but you can't have a bad week. You can't let your weeks turn into months. So now that I look back on those times, whenever I feel down or whatever, I allow myself to have a moment, but I won't allow myself to have an entire day. I'm gonna snap out of it. I'm gonna smile, and I'm gonna say if it's supposed to turn around, I'm supposed to be the one that's going to turn it around. So I think it was just whatever triggered that to make me fall into that depression. Something triggered something else to make me snap out of it and realize that, what, if it's going to be, it's up to me.
So when you reflect upon that time, you talk very singularly. Did you have any support? Did you have friends, family, a counselor that you spoke with?
I didn't. I didn't believe, like, at the time. I didn't believe in. I wasn't going to a therapist. I wasn't. I didn't know much about mental health. I had gone to a therapist years before, but that was for like marriage counseling, and it just was a bad experience. And I was just kind of turned off, like a lot of black men was. So I didn't really feel like I had anybody I could turn to. I mean, you turn to your pastor, but I really wasn't even in church as much as I am now. And like your friends, like you grow up, when you grow up as, I grew up, you don't really feel like you can talk to certain people. You can't share certain emotions or certain feelings, especially when you're feeling down, because you're supposed to be such a strong black man. You're supposed to man up. You're supposed to do all those types of things. So that was my belief. That's how I was raised. So I felt like I couldn't share with anything. I felt like if I could talk to anybody, I didn't feel like I could, have anybody so I could identify with.
So I do hear that from a lot of Black men
Mhm.
that they're very reserved. They don't really want to share their emotions. They don't really know how they're going to be received. Had you tried before to speak to someone and had a bad experience where you told, "Oh man, get over it. It's you got to be stronger than that." When you did you ever try to reach out and get a bad experience?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've spoken to like my brother, and stuff like that, and he was good, but a lot of times people just say take it to God, take it in prayer, and things like that. And yeah, I'll do that. I'll pray about it and like let God work through and stuff like that. And I've done that before, but I also needed to realize that sometimes you can ask God, and God will send you people like therapists that'll help you on your behalf or whatever. So a lot of times when you see the therapist, it ain't God because it ain't coming in God form. So like I asked God to help me out, like He's supposed to just take me through this, but realize that God is sending you somebody to help you. You don't realize, so you kind of like reject that notion. And then sometimes you're just not ready to receive some of the messages that some people are wanting to tell. They're willing to tell you, because a lot of times when you're going through things in life, and these are the things that I've learned. Sometimes they're self-inflicted. Sometimes these things are happening to you because you're not changing your life. You're not making the proper changes that you need to evolve in your life or whatever. So in order for you to move into another direction, into the direction you want to, you have got to get rid of some of the childish things or some of the old ways that you had in order to receive the new blessings. And I didn't realize those things at the time. Obviously, now that I'm older and I've put in the work with therapy, with mental health, and talking to other people and advising other people, I can see those things. But back then, I couldn't. So talking to somebody didn't feel like it was much of an option. I didn't feel like I didn't have anybody close enough that could understand
Mm.
the magnitude of a lot of things that I was going through. And a lot of that was because those same people weren't sharing some of the things that they were going through. A lot of times what we do is we suppress so much of our issues, our traumas and our failures or whatever, that we don't feel like anybody. So when it comes down to somebody else going through something, you don't feel like something you're going through, you don't feel like anybody would understand you. So, and I think that's what I was going through at that particular time. It's like, you know what I'm feeling, nobody can get. I can cry and I can bitch, I can moan all I want to, but if they don't understand it, it's going to look at me like I'm weak. And I've always been a person that's always been the strong one. I've always been the person where people can come and tell me some of their problems and I'll fix their problems. Maybe it wasn't the same problems I had, but I was always the strongest one. So I've always been the strong person in my group. So I felt like, they're having their own issues. I don't want to burden them with my problems.
And also, they always say check on your strong friends because a lot of people, I'm the strong one as well, and a lot
Yeah,
of it's beginning to change as my circle of friends has evolved, but people oftentimes look at someone who they consider to be really strong, really capable as not having any issue. Just because maybe you don't wear it on your sleeve, it's not perceptible to people, but everybody has something. Everybody's walking around with something.
everybody is, and that's why I tell people, like, even now when I'm on social media or whatever, my mom thinks I share too much when I'm on social media. My mom don't want me to share my personal, like, why you always telling them people your personal business? Because she feels like that's her job to tell my personal business to her friends or whatever, so she can have something to gossip about. So she don't want me to tell my business. But I feel like it's important for me to tell people as a public figure or somebody that's a so-called, whatever you want to call me or whatever, somebody that's known, to show people, hey, I have a human side to me, and I don't want to just put out the glossy stuff that a lot of celebrities or like public figures want you to see, that I'm living this great life and life is perfect or whatever, because people can't relate to that, and so they look at you and they want to compare their life to yours, and that's when they go through those depressions. So that's why, so it's easy for me to be able to go out there and say that now, but a lot of people just want to hide those. They want to hide behind that mask, so to speak, because they're ashamed to say, because they feel like they're alone. Even people in that. I felt like I was alone because nobody could understand that. So
Mhm.
until other people started coming out and we just started really making mental health uh, more of a priority worldwide, maybe like 5 6 years ago, we saw some entertainers and athletes come out and speaking out about some of the issues that they were going through and whatnot. So I'm happy that it's happening. I'm happy that we're making strides, and I hope we continue.
And we are making strides, but another part of that challenge is that there aren't a lot of Black counselors. I think there's a percentage, I think it's 2% Black psychologists and
Hmm.
4% Black counselors. I have
Yeah,
to,
therapist. Yep.
um,
Yep.
so, and a lot of people want their counselor to share their same identity.
Yeah.
So, if you're African American and you want an African American counselor, that's really, really challenging. And it's also more so populated by women. So, when Black men decide that they want to go to therapy, they want a Black male, that's a challenge as well. In addition to the cost, in addition to the insurance barriers, because a lot of counselors don't take insurance, there's a lot that we have to do to break down the challenges that prevent people having access to therapy. But I'm glad that we're having that conversation more and more, particularly after the height of the pandemic, because I think that's when people started being really, really vocal publicly about their mental health challenges. So I want
Hmm.
to ask you first, currently, are you in therapy?
Yeah. I don't do therapy as often as I used to. I used to do it once a week, and now I do it like once a month, or when I feel like I need it or whatever. I'm able to
Touch
express
ups.
myself. Yeah, I got to have my touch ups, but early on, I was going once, maybe even seeing her twice a week, as much as I could via Zoom, just being able to talk. I needed to release. I wrote a book. That was my first form of therapy ever, was to write my book to get a lot of stuff off my chest. And if I wouldn't have written that book, I wouldn't be here right now. I really feel like I would have stroked out. I would have had a heart attack. I would have died. I was massively feeling the depression I felt years ago when I was in Dallas, and it was coming back, and I just like couldn't understand why I was so emotional and crying all the time. But when I started writing my book, I was able to release, and once I released it, it felt so good. I'm like, "Man, I need to do this more often." So I always call my book my surgery that I needed, and the therapy was the rehab that I continue to need. Like, you can break your leg and you might need surgery to repair your leg, but after you get surgery you still need to have rehab to learn how to walk again. And so that's what my therapy is. So I don't have to go as often as I used to, but I know it's still some a tool that I can always rely on.
So you mentioned that a while back you were somewhat resistant to therapy.
Mhm.
What was the shift?
I almost lost everything. I mean, I was like, once again, you just don't want to admit that you're, and I won't say I was a bad person because I don't think I've ever been a bad person, but you don't want to admit your flaws. You don't want to admit certain things that you've done in your life that you've hurt people, you hurt yourself. You don't want to admit, like, hey, I'm doing 98% of what I'm doing is great, but that 2% is like really messing a lot of people's lives up, including your life, and you ain't able to make that full jump that you need to make. So there was, certain things that I had been doing in my past that as my daughters started getting older, it started having an effect on our relationship.
Mm,
And nothing's more important to me in my world than my two daughters, my girls. And I've always made it a point that even when I was younger, that hey, I'm gonna make sure that I give my daughters everything that they need. My children, before I had children, I wanted to make sure that my children had everything they needed and most of what they wanted. And I was gonna provide that for them. And so I always looked at that from a standpoint of financially, as long as they had whatever they needed, financially or worldly or gifts and things like that, man, they taken care of and whatnot. Well, what I didn't realize is sometimes they need that human emotion. They need their father to be a father,
mm,
or to teach them certain things, or not allow them to see their dad in a certain light that can affect them and keep a cycle going in our black community, in our black families or whatever. And so when I realized that even though I'm making strides, I'm evolving, I'm not evolving fast enough. And
mm.
so it wasn't until I had that break where I'm like, if I don't do this, I'm gonna lose them. And so that's when I said, let me just go to therapy and figure this out, because they had gone to therapy and they
Yeah.
were telling me, hey, maybe you should try this. You should do this. You need to go there. You got to do this. And I'm like, man, I'm good. What are you talking about? I'm like, what you grew up great. What's wrong with you? And but then it was until like I really felt like I was going to lose them and they weren't going to be in my life anymore if I didn't make this change. Um, yeah. And so when I went, it made me realize the why of, why I was doing certain things and how I could fix it and where it was coming from, and certain tools I could use to overcome that and to make myself whole. Because when you need therapy, obviously there's something that's missing in your life, something that you lack, and in order to become whole again, you got to heal. And
Yeah.
I wasn't healed from a lot of things that happened in my past, even though I had written about it and I knew about it, whatever. I still hadn't healed. I hadn't taken the proper steps to make sure that I had gotten to a point where it wasn't affecting me anymore or the people around me.
And I want to offer, because I think a lot of people do believe that you only go to therapy when something is wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case. You can go to
Mm-hmm.
therapy just to talk about your life, talk about your goals, things you want to do. It doesn't necessarily have to be based on a trauma or an event. I just want to make that clear to everyone watching that
Mm-hmm.
therapy is there for you, whatever stage of life that you're in. Um,
Absolutely.
how long have you been going?
I've been going for like, it was started 5 years now, 5, 6 years. Yep, 5, 6 years. I started right before my book came out, so I was writing my book, but before my book came out, I started going to seeing somebody and being able to talk. And like I said, this helped me so much to the point where I become an advocate for it. Like I went from like just like everybody else, man, I ain't talking to you. I ain't telling these people my business. They don't know what's going on. They can't help me or whatever. I'm gonna take it to God and all that type of stuff. To like, no, we need to go. And like you said, we need to go, even if you feel like you don't need it, because you do need it. People just suppress so much. We can put on all the smiles and the happy faces that we want to, and we can feel happy or whatever. But in the back of your mind, there's some traumas that might be going on that could be affecting you that you don't even realize because you're not thinking about it, but it's still there. There's some anxiety that builds up over a period of time. Like just because you put it on the back burner doesn't mean that it's not there and that it's not heating up or whatever. And eventually it could affect you in some kind of way. But when you go to therapy, you're able to go in there and you're able to kind of like, hey, this is what's happening. This is what's happening in my life. I can go in there and find certain things or whatever. I think I tell people all the time, like, if you were alive during the pandemic, you need therapy. That's a trauma. We went through a pandemic, a once in a lifetime event that had an effect on all of us.
Right.
And the images that we saw during the pandemic and how it affected us and the jobs and everything and our livelihoods and like being stuck with your family sometime or whatever and all that creates trauma and drama, and you need to work those things out, because even though you might forget about it for a second or you're not thinking about it, doesn't mean that it's not there, and doesn't mean that certain things are going to trigger that effect that you had back in the day, or it's going to bring that back and have an effect on you in some kind of way. So that's why I tell people all the time, like, if you say you triggered by something, that means you probably need therapy because you're unhealed by something. So
Yeah.
your therapy helps you to realize the why of what's affecting you, but also if you work through the tools and continue to work through it, it will take away those triggers so it doesn't bother you as much.
Thank you. So first, how did you find your therapist? And did you have a preference? Did you prefer that they be black? Did you prefer they be male or female? Did you have any preferences?
In the beginning, I was just like, I just need to talk to somebody. I knew I needed to talk to a person of color. So my first therapist was an Indian woman.
Mhm.
She was great, and she was actually my daughter's therapist. My daughter was going through something, and so I started talking to her based on the relationship she had with my daughter. So I'm like, okay. So I took her on, and Ray was great. And then after a while, like I realized, like you said, I need to talk to somebody that can relate to what I'm going through when it comes to certain things of culture, of what I'm experiencing in life as a black man sometimes. So, like you said, it's tough, like to try and find a male therapist, a black male therapist, but there was a black female therapist who happened to be my neighbor, who's just right down the street. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I tried her for a while and just been rocking with her ever since or whatever. But and now it's like I feel like, in a sense, I become that therapist for a lot of people. They bring their problems to, but once again, when people dump on you, and I hate to say the word dump, when people release to you and you take on their energy, sometimes you still got to get rid of their energy and get rid of some of the negative energy that you have as well. So it's always imperative for you to continue to release and let that steam off, because the more you take in the stress of life, the traumas that go on in life, the disappointments, the heartbreaks, or whatever, even some of the things that you see other people doing that you say that makes you happy. You can see like you're in a situation where it could be a job and you're happy for other people, but sometimes like, man, what about me? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So that's part of life that you need to get rid of too, because you could be happy for somebody, but at the same time, their happiness can make you sad. Not that you hate on them, but
Right.
their happiness can be like, well, hey, I want something like that too. And you
Yeah.
need to be able to release whatever that energy is to get out of your system and replace it with positive energy, letting you know that, hey, your time is coming.
So what would you say you've gotten out of therapy so far? What changes in yourself have you observed?
I'm lighter. I know I put myself first. I do that. Self preservation is key. I know I take care of me. I make sure that my cup is full. That is the main thing. I'm so honest about this that some of the things. One of my biggest crutches was I was infidelity. I'm just very honest about that. Like, and I'm not proud of it. But I realized back in the day and I know where that came from. When people ask the question, like, why do people cheat or whatever and all that type of stuff like that, I know the answer for me. I can't answer for everybody else, because I went back and I found out where's it start. Because I couldn't trust anybody. I couldn't trust myself. The first person I ever told I love, it was just a terrible experience. And it was a trauma that affected me for 30 years. And I didn't even realize it until I went back and dug and found out, when the therapist says, when's the first time you felt this way? And I went back and I didn't even realize it until I addressed that and I was able to work that out. Wow, that changed my life. So the biggest thing I've gotten out of it is I know how to identify the why, what help that affects me, and what I need to do to fix it. And it made me realize that even when I was going through infidelity, that part of the reason why I felt inadequate, I felt like there was a trauma. Instead of running to cocaine, instead of running to drugs or alcohol or whatever, what I ran to or what ran to me were women. It made me feel better about myself. It was the endorphins that made me feel better. Once again, no excuses. I take accountability for it, but this is what I did. And until I identified that I don't need that to make me feel whole, then that's what turned things around. So that was the main thing. But also, once again, I have to take care of me. I have to be full. A lot of times, like you, when you're the strong person, you pour so much into everybody else. It's almost like that comedian that always makes everybody laugh and he's trying to make everybody happy or whatever. But at home, he's
Oh,
depressed,
I'm gonna cry. Yeah.
crying, and then they commit suicide. Robin Williams is a prime example of that. I was that person. So I realized that, you know what, no matter what I'm giving them, and I need to give them whatever runneth over. I got to fill my cup first before I can give to anybody else. So I'm not inadequate anymore. I'm full, I'm whole. So therapy has helped me
You were never
become that
inadequate.
person.
You were never inadequate. And that's, I'm assuming, what you realize. You were never
Yeah,
inadequate. It was maybe
never,
so.
never.
Going back to that, because a lot of women want to know, why do men cheat?
Mhm.
And you cannot answer for every man.
Nope.
Um, but were you the kind of man who thought, you weren't worthy enough for this person to be in your life, so before they leave me, I'm going to mess it up first?
I was that was exactly who I was. I had an escape plan. I had a like, you're not gonna make a fool of me. It was no, it wasn't that I wasn't worthy of that person. I felt like, I was confident in a sense, but yeah, I felt like you're not gonna cheat on me first. Because that's what happened to me the first time I told a woman I love. Like I could never trust any woman I was with, only because of what happened to me early in my life. And once again, I'm not blaming them. I take full accountability. I should have gotten the help I needed a long time ago, but I didn't realize this until later in my life, unfortunately. And I went and I hurt several people, right? But it was almost like they could do something that would trigger me to remind me of like, oh, I'm not gonna feel that pain I felt when I was 15, 16 years old. And I know that women hear that and like, oh, men get hurt one time, and all of a sudden you just don't want, when we get hurt 3, 4 times a year, or whatever. Well, the thing
But
is, and
why
I'm not
is
making
that?
this,
Why
but
is that? I said, why is that? We have those kinds of conversations all the time.
mhm,
Women go from heartbreak to heartbreak to heartbreak. A man gets hurt once and
yep.
becomes a monster. Why is that?
I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you exactly why. Y'all got support system. Women got support system. Like, so now that we're starting to find our own and we can go and talk to other people, what did we talk about in the beginning? Like, I couldn't talk to anybody about my heartbreak. So
But
if
our support systems are not automatically there. We create those.
you
We
create, because you feel like, because women feel like if you cry over a man that hurts you, you can go and cry. You can cry and you can outwardly cry, I'm hurt. You can tell your girlfriend, I'm hurt. You can tell your mom, I'm hurt. Cry. You can let that go. You can release. And your girlfriend, girl, come over here. Let's get this ice cream.
sometimes.
I've been, huh?
I said sometimes, not everyone has
But for the more often than
more
not,
women than men probably have that,
way
but
more than men. So
that
imagine when a man does that, especially back in the day. If a man admits back in the day, if I would have like, I remember even what happened with part of the issue I went through when I was 16 years old, 15, 16 years old, and I remember crying. I remember hurting or whatever, and telling my friend, and my friend was like, man, fuck that. Excuse me, F that, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, please, man, stop crying. Stop acting like a, blah, blah, blah. Come on, those are the reactions that we hear, so we hold that in, we suppress that. And when we suppress our emotions, that's why I tell women all the time, I was like, if you want your man to be the best he can possibly be, it's up to you. To be honest with you, we need your support, because when it comes
no,
down to a man,
hold on. I got to push back on that. So
push back.
let me reiterate just so that I understand. Are
Mhm.
you saying that for a man to be his best, it that's part of the woman's responsibility?
It helps let me tell you something. For a man, it's up to him ultimately for him to be the best he possibly can be, right? Any man, it's still his accountability, whatever he does, regardless of what a woman does. But how many times have you heard men like Shaq say, I would never let a woman know that she hurt me, because I would never let a woman know that I'm weak because of how they're going to react. So when
But
it comes,
those are his challenges, his insecurities, his issues based off of his experiences. And what I would say to a lot of men who have complaints about how their emotions are received, also be willing to look at, well, what kind of woman are you choosing? Where are you meeting these women?
and
How
that's my point.
how are you vetting them?
That's my whole point.
But
That's my whole.
that
That's
still goes back to the responsibility of the man.
that's my whole point is to find. That's why I always say when and not all. Look, some women just aren't equipped to do that. Some women want that manly man that never shows any emotions or whatever. And yes, it's up to you to choose the right woman that where you feel like you can be yourself and allow yourself to be. But for the most part, when we are taught as men to hold our emotions in around anybody, another man, women, especially women, don't do that around women because you're gonna be looked at as a weak man. How many times have you heard? I've cried in front of a woman before I got therapy, and I remember her going back and telling all my friends that I cried in front of her and all that type of stuff like that. So guess what that does? That shuts you down as a man because as a man we're not supposed to. We're taught we're not supposed to cry. So when I say this about, I think it's partly, I don't say the responsibility, but it helps when women are women because men, guess what? The majority of what we do in life is for the benefit or for the satisfaction or for the approval of a woman. Think about this. For men, y'all can go get your hair done, look good, girl, you look good, blah blah blah, and you do this and everything like that. Your style, everything that you have, your nails, y'all do that. You can do it for other women. Of course, you want to attract other men. Men, we don't do that for other men. We do that for y'all. We go get our hair cut. We look like cavemen if it wasn't for women. We would be straight up cavemen if it wasn't for y'all. The kind of job that we get, the money that we have,
Out
pretty
there.
much everything we have is like, okay, we do that because yeah, we want to, you know, there's a status thing with other men, but at the same time, it's like, oh, if I got this, I can attract her, right? So when we get your approval and your endorsement on things, it makes us want to do even more. You guys are the biggest influence on our lives on anything. So when you say, man, going to therapy is sexy, I want a man that shows his emotion, not a man that's like crybaby and all, because there's a difference between that. But I want a man who is able to show his emotions and able to express his feelings or whatever freely or whatever, and be able to come to me. And I feel like that's work and not weakness. If you say that to enough men, they will buy into that a little bit more, right? And then that will encourage them to go to therapy or whatever if you do that. But if you say, oh, he weak, oh, he crying, look at him, I can't believe this, blah, blah, I want a real man. Guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna hold that in, and if we hold that in, guess what it's gonna come out as? That's what y'all call toxic masculinity. And y'all don't want that either.
There's still work to be done in terms of gender roles, what a man is supposed to be, what a woman is supposed to be. But where I think that we agree is it is important for an environment to be created for a person to be vulnerable. That's
Yes.
really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Important um, for whoever you're partnered with to be able to meet you where you are. And if
Mm-hmm.
they can't, that's not going to
Then you're
be,
not with the right person.
yeah.
You're not with the right person. But I'm saying overall in society, because we still we're also influenced by things that you see in society too. We all are from a standpoint of whatever. You know what I mean? Sometimes we look at the norms of what's out there and we say, well, if so and so, I'm afraid. Sometimes people are afraid to put something on social media because you're afraid of what some people may say. You can have the majority of the comments on social media can be positive, but sometimes you're afraid to be vulnerable on social media because you're afraid somebody's going to be negative. That's how people are in society. So as a man, we're afraid, even though the majority of them out there could be, hey, Pa, this is wonderful, this love. Sometimes we don't want to hear the negative because we see and we hear the negative a lot more louder than we see the positive. And that's unfortunate. But it takes work to even get to that point. It took a lot of work for me to even be vulnerable, to show that side of me outside of like the mask I was putting on, this great image. Hey, I'm not having a good day today. Let me put this out here. This is what I've gone through, whatever. And if I get comments about this, if I get somebody bringing that stuff up, it's off me because I got a thicker skin. But I had to go through that. I had to go through therapy. I had to go through counseling. I had to go through and do the work to understand that like you don't define me, and what you say about me doesn't define me. I know where I want to go, and I know who I am. But there aren't a lot of people out there until you do the work that's going to get to that point.
So, what would you like to see happen, or what do you think needs to happen in order for Black men in particular um, to begin to have these more vulnerable conversations, to begin to do more introspection? What would you like to see happen? What kind of conversations are you having with your Black male friends?
We have I get I'm aligned with certain men now that are able to show their emotions. I am the person that checks in now. I'll be like, how you doing? And not just how you doing, bro. How you really doing? You
Right.
okay? What's going? I'm here for you. If you ever need to talk, I'm here for you. I'm letting you know, man, no matter what you're going through, no matter what life brings at you, because I've been there for you. I think people being more honest and being more open and honest about what they're going through with their friends and having those safe spaces is allowing us to have these type of conversations so that we can become better men, because we have to stop the cycle. Black men, we have to stop the cycle of what it was for our granddads and our dads were doing and whatnot, to not just Black women but to us, and how we teach us. We have our kids and our grandkids and the responsibility to make the world better for them. So in order for us to do that, we have got to get out that mindset that, hey, stop, man up, because you continue to man up, you're going to suppress all that shit. And then eventually it's going to be man down. And when I say man down, you're going to be 6 feet down, toes
Right.
up. And we don't want that. So we want to be better men in society. So it's up to, people. I'm going to use my platform. I'll say that to go out here and spread the word. And if some people get it, some people don't. I'm not getting everybody. I got a lot of Black male from, I ain't doing that. I don't care what you say, bro. You look crazy. I can't reach everybody. You're not going to reach everybody. The best pastor in the world is not going to bring everybody to God, no matter
Right.
what you do. There's still going to be some people that just aren't going to reach. But if you can grab some of the sinners and bring them closer to God, then that's what your job is. That's what your purpose is. And I feel like this is part of my purpose.
And do you talk this way with your daughters? Do you talk with them about their emotions and their mental health? Do you have those conversations?
Absolutely. I stress to get it off. We talk all the time. Like, please let me know what's going on in your life. Share, please. And in the beginning, and once again, it took work for me because my youngest daughter is very emotional, and she used to cry. I'm like, why are you crying? I don't know. I don't know. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? And I would think something wrong. I'm like, no, cry, let it out. Please let it go. I encourage that. Let it go. There's once again, we gotta stop thinking that we're being a crybaby because you're letting, man, we got emotions. You don't know why you got this shit built up in you. So when we got that stuff built in, you gotta let it go, man. That's your body's way of cleansing. So you gotta cleanse emotionally. And if you don't, it's gonna hurt you another way. It's gonna affect you another way. It's gonna come out of anger. And you don't want that either. So yeah, I encourage that. I encourage everybody. So like, hey man, you feeling this way? Let's talk it out. I'm here for you. And I pray that I have friends where I say, man, I need you, bro. I need to talk to you about something. I got friends. I know I have a group of people, a safe space where I can go and I can talk to them. And I'm like, hey man, I'm vulnerable. I'm this at this moment, whatever, and let it go. And luckily, I got like-minded people that are in my life, and I keep those people in my life to keep me that way, and they know they can count on me too.
So, where would you say in this journey of your evolution, where are you now?
I am still walking into my manhood. I feel like I'm a man, but I'm still walking into my manhood. I didn't start becoming a man until I was 47, 48 years old. I
Mhm.
felt like I had obviously a penis and I was an adult and whatever. That didn't make me a man. I didn't start becoming a man until I started putting away childish things. Now, do I claim to have wings on? Absolutely not. But I'm trying to get my wings. I'm trying to be as much of an angel as possible. I'm never going to be perfect. Only one being is perfect, and that's God. So, but I want to walk in that light of what God wants me to be, to walk in my purpose. So that's where I am right now, and I'm continuing to evolve and as we speak.
Thank you. Mike, thank you so much for joining Carbon Convos. I know you're busy, so I really, really appreciate your
No,
time.
thank
This
you.
has been a really great conversation. I think people are going to get a lot out of it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That's what it's all about. I appreciate your time.